They called her Unsinkable, Japan's ultimate carrier, armored and invincible. But within hours of her first battle, Taihō would vanish beneath the Pacific, torn apart from within. The ship, born from defeat, carried secrets no armor could protect. After Midway, Japan's pride lay in ruins, with the 4 fleet carriers gone and alongside its naval supremacy. From those ashes rose a single answer: Taihō. Meaning Great Phoenix, she was designed to prove that Japan could still dominate the Pacific. Her flight deck was armored with 3 inches of steel, which was a first for any Japanese carrier. It was built to resist the kind of bomb strikes that had doomed Akagi and Kaga. Beneath all that armor, her hull was compartmentalized like a purebred battleship, with fuel lines reinforced, her engines capable of over 33 knots. Every plate and rivet carried a message. Never again would a single hit decide Japan's fate. Even to the men who served aboard her, Taihō was so much more than a warship. She was redemption in motion, a solid symbol that Japan could still control the air and the ocean. As she prepared for her first mission in 1944, the fleet believed it finally possessed a weapon worthy of turning the tide, although even legends have weaknesses hidden beneath their armor. Because perfection that's built in desperation always carries cracks that eyes can't really see. Taihō's creation was a feat of sheer determination. Commissioned in March 1944, she emerged from Kure Naval Arsenal as Japan's last fully realized carrier that was sleek and powerful, but hurried nonetheless. Every deadline was cut close. The war had drained Japan's resources. Steel was scarce, skilled labor scarcer still. What should have taken years was completed in less than 2. Engineers pushed limits they barely understood. Her armored flight deck added unmatched protection, but also immense weight, forcing design trade-offs deep below the waterline. New aviation fuel systems promised faster refueling, but they introduced some volatile risks as well. Tight schedules meant critical testing was skipped, and men worked through air raids, welding beneath blackout tarps as bombs fell miles away. When Taihō finally sailed, she represented both triumph and exhaustion, a masterpiece built under siege. She was immediately placed under Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa's command, leading the mobile fleet into Operation A-Go, Japan's last great carrier offensive. To every sailor aboard, Taihō wasn't just a ship. She was proof Japan still had strength left to fight. Seemed like the first mission would test that belief to the breaking point. The ocean ahead would become a graveyard for Japan's dying air power. June 19, 1944, dawn over the Philippine Sea. Taihō cuts through rather calm waters, her decks alive with motion. Mechanics tune engines, armorers load bombs, and pilots stand by for launch orders. She leads Admiral Ozawa's mobile fleet of 9 carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and Japan's last chance to turn the tide. Their objective: destroy the US 5th Fleet before it reaches the Marianas. American landings at Saipan threatened Japan's defensive perimeter, and the Imperial Navy's answer was to strike first, fast and hard. From Taihō's armored deck, waves of Zeros, Judies and Jills roar into the sky, chasing radar contacts beyond the horizon. But what awaited them wasn't opportunity, it was total annihilation. The US carriers, guided by superior radar and veteran pilots, turned the skies into a slaughterhouse. One by one, Japan's attacking waves vanished in flames before ever reaching their targets. Aboard Taihō, crew members still believed their flagship was untouchable, an unsinkable fortress of steel leading a wounded empire's last stand. They were wrong. Their greatest threat was already closing in from below. Beneath the waves, a single hunter waited, silent, patient, and deadly precise. At 7:45 a.m., the submarine USS Albacore, commanded by Lieutenant Commander James W. Blanchard, sighted Taihō's task group slicing through the Pacific. He maneuvered into position, closing the distance through layers of Japanese escort screens. 6 torpedoes left their tubes in rapid succession, and were streaking toward the largest target the US Navy had ever faced. One torpedo found its mark. It struck Taihō's starboard side beneath the forward aircraft elevator. The explosion ripped open her aviation fuel tanks, flooding the lower compartments with volatile gasoline fumes. The carrier lurched, listing slightly, but her engines kept turning. To the men aboard, it felt survivable. Another test of their unsinkable armor. Damage reports were somewhat confusing as pumps were activated, compartments sealed, and operations resumed. Pilots continued launching for the morning strike, unaware that each takeoff vibrated the leaking tanks below. In the command tower, Admiral Ozawa received word, minor damage, under control. The truth was far worse. The blast hadn't sunk Taihō. It had transformed her into a floating bomb, waiting for the smallest spark to end her. What followed wasn't enemy fire, just human error turned catastrophe. Inside Taihō, the air grew noticeably heavier by the hour. Gasoline fumes seeped through the lower decks, pooling in every compartment the damage control teams couldn't reach. The crew, now choking on the smell, opened hatches and ran the ventilation system to clear it, unaware they were spreading death throughout the ship. Fuel vapor flowed through ducts, engine spaces, and even the crew quarters. Each gust of circulated air carried a thin mist of explosive gas to all corners of the carrier. No one realized the danger. The ventilation crews were following standard procedure for any ship but Taihō. Her armored hangar perfectly trapped the fumes, turning every sealed space into a potential ignition chamber. By noon, the temperature below decks climbed dangerously. Engineers worked beside flickering lights, mechanics refueled aircraft, and officers prepared for another launch cycle. From the outside, Taihō looked untouched, calm, organized, efficient. But below the armored deck, the unsinkable carrier was seconds away from becoming her own worst enemy. Then, without warning, the ship became its own executioner. At 14:30 hours, the inevitable happened. Deep inside Taihō's hull, a faint spark that was likely from an electric motor or tool found the vapor cloud that had filled the ship. The result was instant and absolute. A thunderous explosion ripped through the hangar decks, hurling aircraft, ammunition, and men into the air. Bulkheads tore apart as secondary blasts followed. Flames engulfed everything, from the bridge to the engine rooms. Sections of the armored flight deck buckled upward. Elevators were blown clear off their rails. Crew members who survived the initial blast scrambled through darkness and smoke, but there was nowhere to go as every passageway led to fire or flooding. Admiral Ozawa was forced to transfer his flag to another ship. Captain Kaku Takuya stayed behind, refusing to leave until evacuation was complete. Within hours, Taihō, the pride of the Imperial Navy, rolled onto her side and disappeared beneath the Pacific. From the surface, survivors could only watch as the sea swallowed the unsinkable carrier whole, leaving nothing but oil, debris, and silence. Yet even as she died, courage flickered across the smoke-choked horizon. As Taihō burned, Captain Kaku Takuya refused to abandon his post. He moved calmly through the bridge, issuing orders to save as many men as possible. Survivors later recalled his voice steady, even as fire closed in around him. When the final blast tore through the ship, he was still aboard, the last to leave, the first to die. Overhead, returning pilots circled the devastation in disbelief. They had fought bravely in the Philippine Sea, only to find their carrier gone, their home erased in hours. Some ditched nearby to rescue floating crewmen. Others had to fly on, fuel nearly gone, toward uncertain land bases that would never see them arrive. Beneath them, the sea concealed the silent hunters that had made it possible, submarines using depth, current and darkness as their terrain, striking with precision Japan could neither match nor defend against. Taihō's loss wasn't just mechanical, it was spiritual, the breaking of Japan's carrier soul, sunk not by enemy fire alone, but by fate, courage, and the cost of human error.